is Charlene Platon, and welcome to our March 2022 Fifth Window Spotlight. I'm CEO and co-founder of Fifth Window, and we host these monthly spotlight events to highlight nurses and their journeys of self-care and well-being, and also to highlight the diverse profession of nursing. For today's spotlight, we have a special guest, but we will also be able to screen questions and conversation and comments that are written during this conversation. So if you have a question, you could go ahead and put in the chat. We're actually live streaming through YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So go ahead and feel free to send us a comment or a question throughout the duration of this conversation, and we'll do our best to respond to your questions and answer them during our live stream. And so now I'd like to start by introducing the Fifth Window team. So I'll go ahead and have Michael introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michael. I'm a co-founder of Fifth Window, and I'm a developer also working on the Fifth Window app.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. And now we're really honored to introduce our March 2022 Fifth Window Spotlight guest, Nadine Palacio. And Nadine Palacio is a nurse coach. She's the founder of Thriving Twentysomethings, a business that centers on helping AAPI health professional 20-somethings dream bigger and live in abundance by coaching them on how to get their shift together and live their best lives authentically and unapologetically. Nadine has spoken at the annual Minority Health Conference hosted by the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, or UNC, and she's also been featured on podcasts that centers on mental health and wellness, Ube Chats, and has also hosted various workshops for the special community, such as Postgrad Money Makeover. With the mission to spark change within our immediate communities, through her efforts, she hopes to be able to facilitate the change that we wish to see around the world. Hi, Nadine. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
It's so wonderful to have you here, and we just love hosting these events so that we can meet nurses like you who are pursuing these different journeys in healthcare and nursing and wellness. And could you start by telling us a little bit about your journey in nursing? How did you find out about nursing in the first place, and how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah. So um, I believe a big factor of me pursuing nursing is the fact that I was raised by my two parents who are also nurses, like many others. And at a young age, I discovered my calling in wanting to help in helping others in their healing journey, especially in their most vulnerable moments. Um, And so that path led into nursing. During my teenage years, I always found myself rebelling on telling myself I'm not going to be a nurse. I tried doing all the other things, like trying to test out other interests like pharmacy, medicine, public health, anything but nursing. And I just found that neither of those clicked for me the way that nursing did. And so I pursued that path. And then I graduated back in 2017 with my BSN. I worked in a teaching hospital for about 3 years. I worked in a cardiac unit and the PACU. And then I transitioned to being a travel nurse for about a year. And that's where it's led me today.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing about your journey, Nadine. And I completely relate to what you said about doing everything else except for nursing and then finding your way back to nursing. I had that same experience. um,
Yeah.
and and also we have our other co-founder here. Kathy, do you want to introduce yourself really quick? Oh, sorry, Kathy. I think you're on mute.
I did. I wanted the dogs. I'm sorry. The dogs are kind of a little restless right now. My name is Kathy Schaefer. I'm a registered nurse. I'm also a compassion fatigue professional, and I am a co-founder along with my other two here today.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. And Nadine, and in terms of your nursing journey, I'm really curious to see how you learned about nurse coaching, because I think it's still something that's really up and coming in terms of different opportunities that nurses can pursue. But was there any moment that specifically led you to nurse coaching or any specific, path that led you there?
Mm-hmm. So my dream is to travel and to do a job that I love. And during my path as a staff nurse, I just saw that there was a lot of opportunity into becoming a travel nurse. So around like a little before the pandemic happened, I started to jump into travel nursing and starting researching what are the next steps that I can take. And I realized that there's a lot of information out there and it's overwhelming. And somehow throughout the research, I came across a travel nurse mentor. And basically she literally had the blueprint to all things travel nursing. And so I invested in her course, but more so as an investment in myself. And I went into her program, and it just made me realize that my life is so expansive, and that especially as a nurse, our career can take us to so many different paths. And seeing another person of color being able to share this knowledge, to share her lessons, life lessons, is just monumental. Because there wasn't a lot of people that I could look up to that I saw that were doing travel nursing, and stepping out of their comfort zones like that. And to see someone do that was that was just the beginning and the best decision I ever made. And then,
Great. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And then also onto that, I learned during my travel nursing journey, there was a point where it was around April 9th, 2021 specifically, where I was tired of the routine that I was doing, working at the hospital setting, where I was doing what I went to school for, what I was trained to do. And I was literally just counting down the hours down to the very seconds until I could clock out. And that was the tipping point for me. And I remember sitting in my car, crying and breaking down just because of the fact that I was questioning, why wasn't I happy? Like, I'm here working as a nurse, I have a good job, I have a stable paycheck, I am working with good people, but I was left unfulfilled. And as a child of immigrants, as an Asian American, as the eldest daughter, and as a woman of color, I was taught to be grateful for what I have. And it left me unfulfilled. And I knew I couldn't live like this forever, and that there was no way that I couldn't be the only one feeling this way, especially as
Mm-hmm.
an Asian American. And so there was a lot of shame that I had to uncover, because this was nurse coaching was not a traditional path. And
Mm-hmm.
I knew my worth. I know my worth now. And I vowed to myself that I would live my life on my own terms, because I knew then that I deserve more, and that my family deserves more, my ancestors deserve more, and that I have the ability to create the life and the freedom that I have now.
Thank you so much, Nadine. And there were so many things that you said that really resonate. I think it resonates with a lot of different people within the AAPI community. And that stands for the Asian American and Pacific Islander community, for our members in the audience. And so this is a really big challenge, kind of having to deal, or not deal with, but having to face these different pressures from our different cultures, but also seeing how that can impact the career decisions that we make, because it definitely does. It does, just from my own experience too. It really impacts those decisions that you make, because you want to make everyone happy, you want to make everyone proud, but then at the same time, sometimes what you pursue might be different than what they know to be a successful path. And I know that
Mhm.
that for something like nurse coaching, a lot of people may not be familiar with that opportunity. So so it might be looked down upon within, from our parents or from other members of the community. But I really give you kudos for pursuing that path, because it's not easy at all. So
It's not, but it is definitely a challenge that's worth stepping out of your comfort zone for.
yes, and actually we have a comment from one of our audience members. Michael, do you want to read that really quick?
Yeah,
From
sure.
Adrian?
Yeah, this one's from Adrian, and she says, I'm on call this weekend, hoping I don't get called in, so I get to finish this nursing spotlight. Yes, for nurse coaches. From one nurse coach to another, I celebrate you.
Thank you.
Yes, and Adrian is also a member of the AAPI community and also pursuing nurse coaching. And it's just great to see so many people who are looking into these different pathways. And so I really thank you for sharing, because there are a lot of challenges when you are when you're from an immigrant family, and they may not understand the different opportunities that are available. But at the same time, I think it's really inspiring, and I think that's part of the progress, right? To be able to do these different opportunities outside of the normal, or what you might see as a typical opportunity and role for nursing. So really, really applaud you for that.
There is plenty of space. There is plenty of space.
Yes, absolutely. And tell us about, on that subject of coaching, can you tell us about Thriving 20 somethings? Because I think I first of all, I really like the name, and can you tell us a little bit more about that, and
Oh,
also about your motto of getting your shift together, because I love that too.
yes, I love to. So it started about last year, again, whenever I was having that monumental, pivotal moment. But really, Thriving 20 somethings is a service to help other nurses and other healthcare professionals just dream bigger and live in abundance. As I'm going through my journey as a 20 something, I'm starting to create more room to unlearn behaviors, unlearn habits, and create more healthier decisions, habits, and live in abundance and make decisions from abundance and not from scarcity or fear. And the idea of getting your shift together, it stems from this notion that we can create healthy habits to move us in a positive direction. But that starts with ourselves first before that can impact anyone else. And for the sake of time, I like to just share that I do teach on shifting the get your shift together. It can happen at the workplace, but also it happens within yourself first. And it's by shifting your perspective, shifting your self-talk, and shifting your approach. Like everyone has like like when I speak on habits, like everyone has a morning routine, and your morning routine is set of your daily habits. So, like getting up, going to the bathroom, brushing your teeth, getting ready for work, like all of that stems from habits that you do daily. And it's a really good quote that I like to share. Your life is the sum total of your days. Your days are the sum total of your daily actions, and your daily actions are the result of your daily habits. So that's where the getting your shit together stems from.
I really like that, and I think what I really enjoy about that motto too is that there are so many ways to apply it, and I think that people may not realize how much systems impact the what you do in your daily life, and how much that could contribute to your overall goals, whether that might be for your well-being, for your career. So I think that's a great motto to live by and to help others with as they pursue their own journeys. And for the coaching, have you had your own coach as well? Has someone been able to help you through your journey, or was that something maybe that you didn't have while you're pursuing nursing?
Yeah. Um, So I did have my like travel nurse mentor, and from there, like my mind opened up more to see that there's so many resources out there where you can learn from others. Like I truly believe that we should always be students for life. Like there's always something to learn, despite challenges. And so going back to that, um, I've hired, I've looked for coaches, I've put myself in spaces where either on Instagram where I'm following certain people who whose values align with mine, where I'm learning from them. I'm having conversations with them, networking. Like the fact that I was able to come across Fifth Window, that was just a blessing. So it's just crazy how big the world is and also how small.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing about that because even as we are trying to find nurses who are like-minded and who are really interested in well-being and also pursuing their specific journeys in nursing, it could be challenging, right? Because you might not always know where to find these different nurses or these like-minded persons. Do you have a specific method for how you find certain people who might be like-minded or maybe other members of the AAPI community who, might have similar goals? Because that might be a challenge if someone is feeling maybe isolated in their own communities.
hmm I think more so it's like because a lot of people are on like social media. So being able to like find spaces like conferences is a good start. Looking up hashtags, that's always a good one too. Um, and just kind of like using your emotional intelligence to kind of lead you into figuring out like is this a person that I align with? Is their message something that I align with? And kind of taking seeing it from that perspective.
Yes, sounds great. And also with your perspective as a member of the AAPI community, how do you feel that's really shaped the clients that you work with as a nurse coach, or how do you think that really shapes your journey as a nurse and the work that you do specifically in coaching?
Mm-hmm. Seeing coming from an API background, it brings on so much more because it brings on your whole life experience. It brings up like the coming from an immigrant family, like it just brings on a different perspective and appreciation um, into this world that we're living in. Uh, and working with clients who come from that background, it's it's being able to just like be eye opening to to show what's possible for the world, especially seeing someone of a as a person of color, to be able to dream bigger.
Yes, and do you see that a lot of your clients or the people you work with might, are there a lot of limits they might place on themselves, or are there specific questions or specific patterns that you see when they do come to you seeking for some advice or mentorship?
hmm A lot that I see in common is more so putting their dreams on the back burner, and just like not and just letting imposter syndrome just take over, and the fact that there's so much fear there that overtakes them, where there's two things you can choose. Like fear is there to help make you not do something stupid. Um, but more so it's also tapping into the courage and the bravery that's there into relying on faith too, because what what I see from like visions is like there's something bigger there. There's a reason why you're able to dream this big. We just also need to release and let go of the fear that's there.
Yes, and fear it's a really big concern for a lot of people, and there's a quote that I really like, and it's everything that you want is on the other side of fear. And it's something I think about a lot because it rings true for a lot of people, you know, a lot of I think many people, even those outside of the AAPI community, there is a lot of fear about taking that next step, maybe because it's an unconventional path, and you know, or maybe because it's not something that they know a lot about, or it's something like entrepreneurship where there's a lot of unknowns until you pursue that path. But what advice do you have for these individuals who do have a lot of that fear, and anything that you'd like to recommend to them if they're thinking of something, they're thinking of a dream that they have, but they really don't know where to start, or they're just really, um, they have a lot of this fear?
Mm. So, so the question is, what steps can they take to overcome fear? Is that right?
Yeah, or any advice you have if someone's thinking about a goal, but they have this kind of block that's maybe preventing them from taking that first step.
Mm-hmm. So one thing that I like to do is setting up little wins, because really more so the fear that's there, it's and this is where it comes into getting your shift together in relying on your habits, because as long as you're moving in a direction of progress, whether you're just getting 1% better than you were yesterday, that that is that is the real truth that you want to get at, is as long as you're making progress, then you can kind of get over the fear. Another example is like just kind of like, for example, public speaking. For me, it took me a while to want to public speak and get on stages like this. And how I practice in setting up little wins for myself was just recording myself on my phone and just pretending to like go live. And but I'm not posting it. And so then I can like look back at it, or like do it and try not to get stuck in your head by, oh, oops, I said that. So just being able to do little things like that. And another I want to share this opportunity where I have pause and pivot to play sessions that I sent the link to Charlene for. That it's a gifted session that I offer, where it's an opportunity for us to just have that conversation to bounce back these ideas, because as I'm going through my journey, I realized that I wish I had someone there to bounce off these ideas from and not get stuck in my head, and just being able to verbalize those ideas and like have an action towards the end. That was life changing.
Yes, I love those steps that you can take, and thank you for sharing the recommendations. I think a lot of the time when we have a big dream or a big goal, it's overwhelming because you're thinking, you know, you're just thinking of how big the dream is, but then the steps to get there actually require a lot of little steps, just like what you mentioned. You could start really small, recording to yourself, just like what you said, just taking those little actions to get to that ultimate dream that you might have. And so I really appreciate that mindset. And for those listening, I have right here, I posted in the chat, but also you could see this is a link to Nadine's Calendly, so you could schedule a session with her and think a little bit more about your mindset if you do have a big goal that you'd like to pursue, but you're not really sure how to get started. So happy to share that. And also just wanted to open up the floor to my co-founders. Any questions that you all wanted to ask on this topic in particular for Nadine?
Well, so I just have to have a comment, and I know maybe I should ask my comment later or make my comment after the dogs are done playing. It just seems whenever I'm on the computer, they want to start being very active behind me. I guess one of my biggest comments is, so I'm an older nurse. I've been a nurse for almost 30 years, and your wisdom about life and how you needed to change your journey because you weren't happy. You sat in your car and you were saying to yourself, this is not, like, I shouldn't have to do this. Like, I need to do something that makes me happy. Like, why doesn't this make me happy? Is very insightful for someone. And I don't mean to insult your age, but but you are young, right? And to have that type of insight is just so refreshing as as co-founders in a company who are trying to get nurses to say, to themselves, I need to take care of myself. And if this environment isn't making me happy, then I need to do something different. And I also hear that it's the fear of, well, what if I don't do this, then what do I do? Because this is all I know. Like, all I know is bedside nursing. And so I just wanted to comment and just to compliment you. But I wonder, where does that come from? Where did that, I mean, I know it sounded like you did a lot of internal, like, processing, but there had to have been something that could trigger that internal processing. So, was it like, I know you mentioned your family and you being the oldest, but were there role models, or was it just that one nurse that you met that took you under her wing, or?
Actually, it was when I was working, where, because I was working in California as my first assignment, and I'm originally from North Carolina, so I love to go out of my comfort zone. And so the thing was, I would be driving about an hour to work. I'd be getting up at 4 a.m. just to get to work at a 9 a.m. shift. And I'd grab my coffee, I'd jump in the car, I'd drive an hour, I sit in traffic, and then I walk about 2 blocks from my parking spot to the hospital. I clock in, I work my 12-hour shift, I clock out, and drive home, eat, sleep, repeat. That was my daily routine. And I guess I was always, up to that point, I was coming into work realizing that I was doing what I was trained to do, what I went to school for, and I was left unfulfilled because it was such a monotonous way of living. And I just had this like nagging thought that my time was worth more, that I could be doing more with my time than this. And there wasn't even any amount of money that I could be paid for to be spending my time doing the same routine each day. And I did that for 4 years. And then that's when I led into the point, like, April 9th is like when I was crying in my car and I realized that I was like, why wasn't I fulfilled? And I just knew I couldn't live like this forever. And going from that experience, I realized it this is where we need to revolutionize healthcare through self-care. And this is where I align so much with Fifth Window, because it's so important to focus on ourselves, what makes us happy. And during my sessions, through the 3P sessions, we go into like what makes you feel alive. So an exercise that I like to do is just list 3 things or 3 moments when you last felt alive. And we can take some time to do that now if you want. And then just think about why did it make you feel alive? Why did those 3 moments make you feel alive? And then
And we invite the audience to do the same too. For anyone who's listening, definitely, because I'm thinking right now too as you're talking, Nadine. So yes, this is great.
Mhm. So yeah, so list 3 moments when you last felt alive. Think of why it makes you feel alive, what feelings come up. And if you want to, you can type it in the chat how you're feeling. And then as you come to thinking of that, think that I am grateful that those moments happened. And for that exercise, it really brings in more gratitude, and just imagine that energy that you feel. Imagine that being translated into healthcare. Like, you didn't have to, I mean, you needed to pause and think about it, but like imagine like the feelings you get from like taking a vacation, taking a break, and then going back into work, like how that translates into what you do. Like, especially as nurses, once we fill our own cups first, then we are then able to give to others and be able to provide safe patient care, to be on our A game, to be more present and more collaborative. And I think that's where that stems from. So yeah, self-care.
That's great, Nadine. I love the exercise. And Michael, do you want to read the comment we got? Oh, sorry, I think you're on mute.
Yes, this is from Adrienne again. So Adrienne says, yes, 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 I will echo all of that, Nadine. Taking a leap of faith with nurse coaching, moment number one, taking a leap of faith with nurse coaching. Moment number two, leaving bedside, but still feeling a spark with nursing. Number three, choosing me to be there, more for others, filling our cups to fill others. Thanks, Adrienne.
Thank you, Adrienne. And that definitely resonates. I think that this exercise is super important for any nurse who's pursuing their journey and they're feeling, the same. They're feeling maybe a little stuck or maybe something isn't quite right with their journey. And that's a great way to visualize or just to think about it, especially if you don't really you might sense that something is not quite right, but you can't really pinpoint it. I think that exercise really helps, especially when you talk about energy and what gives you that energy, what makes you feel excited. So I really enjoy that perspective. But thank you for sharing that with us, Nadine.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to ask too, what is it that you're working on now with your coaching or with your business or anything else that you're working on that you want to share?
Yeah. So right now, what I'm currently working on is living life more fully, and just having fun with life and being able to share this knowledge with the world. Because I realize I do the world a disservice by not sharing and getting on these stages and not being able to share these ideas that I've learned from many others. And I believe that everyone has a gift and that they can help make this world a better place. So that's what I'm working on. And I invite you guys, whether if you're a new graduate or if you've been working in healthcare for a few years, or you feel like an urge to want to pivot into another direction, I definitely invite you to schedule some time with me, because the link below is a 90-minute Zoom conversation where we can get clear on where you are. We can play with the idea on what you would love to create and figure out the next important step that can move you in the direction of your next level.
That's great. And we have a question from an audience member. Michael, do you want to read that one?
Yeah, sure. This is from Lynn Wilkie Newberry. She says, can you provide a description of the difference between a nurse coach versus mentor?
So with a nurse mentor, I believe that they are more so providing like the steps, and or they are giving you like an idea on what you want to pursue, like, and giving you steps and giving you like direction on how to. But as a nurse coach, I'm holding space for you to be able to dream this and to help you move in the direction that works best for you. Not, I'll bring in my life experience and being able to bring on my nursing experience as well, and being able to like do the whole AAPI, like assessment, diagnosis, all that stuff, and planning. But really, it's more so to hold space for you to be able to envision it and figure out what your next steps are. And I'm there to help support you and hold you accountable through it all.
I think that's a big difference between a mentor and a coach. You know, a mentor is someone who certainly um, uh, kind of almost models and helps develop you, where a coach holds you accountable in your development. I think that would be a big difference, because mentors don't usually hold us accountable. They're really someone who's there to be a guide or to provide maybe an easier path, right? And that's not to say that a nurse coach doesn't provide a path, but I think for a nurse coach, you, like I said, they definitely, and you said it, they definitely hold you accountable for your actions. Oh, and we actually have a
Mm-hmm.
comment from another nurse coach in our audience. That
Woohoo!
Farah Laurent says that a mentor is more of a long-term relationship, where a coach. So thank you for that. I think that's wonderful. Again,
Mm-hmm.
for an older nurse, right? Um, Nurse coaches in our minds was more, we think, more for patients, right? We don't and there were career coaches that, we could go to, but I think nurse coaches that are coming out and being nurse coaches for nurses is a relatively new space, and I think it's wonderful, because as a faculty member who teaches young nurses, it's great that there are, I guess, there are people and there are spaces that they can go to get more of. They get the mentoring when they're in the hospital, just like, you all did and we all did. But this having nurse coaches can help them see more of what they can do with their nursing background. So that's, and thank you all for, and all our nurse coaches who are on our live stream here sharing your
Woohoo!
comments with us, because we need you all in our nursing world, given what's happening to all of us right now, feeling very burnt out and very spent at the bedside. That there needs to be people who can help guide other nurses, because I don't think that nobody wants to. Honestly, I don't think nurses want to leave what they're doing. It's,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And I'll just share too. Adrian posted a link for those who are interested in learning specifically more about nurse coaching. Here's a link for you all to refer to. And I just love how many nurse coaches we actually have in this conversation today. This is awesome. Just love hearing from it. And there's more comments too. Michael, did you want to read from Adrian and from Farah? They have a few more comments. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Okay, sorry about that. So Adrian said regarding nurse coaches, she says, we put the client in the driver's seat of their lives versus a mentor, someone who guides. In a way, nurse coaches help clients be their catalyst and their own coach. Generally speaking, great coaches, fitness or otherwise, train clients not to need them. That's great. And Farah says, great topic. I coach mostly new graduate nurses and empower them to confidently land their dream positions. And then we have another one from Lynn Wilkie Newberry. She says, thank you. I have been a nurse for over 30 years, and I have served as a mentor and probably coached for many, and never really considered what I do as a specific role. I guess I thought of this as something, as the right thing to do as a professional nurse. Give back to others and create a future. Really great. And then we have also from Farah. She says it's important to support
new graduate nurses, and also help them realize the opportunities available to them. A lot of times they are told they cannot start in their preferred specialty and usually are told to pursue med surg. So that's a great point too. And thank you everybody for all the comments. This is great.
Yeah, these are great insights
Yeah.
and absolutely agree. Anything to add to those comments, Nadine?
Oh yeah. Well, first off, you don't have to start in med surg. I learned
No,
that
you
real
don't.
quick. You don't have to.
So I
Yeah.
have another question for you, Nadine. In your time when you were, do you still travel now? Do you travel nursing now?
Right now, no.
No? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. In your time when you were traveling, did you, because you're an outsider when you come in, you're part of that system.
Mhm.
So did you observe other nurses who may have felt like you did or were a little unfulfilled what they were doing? Did you observe a lot of that or?
Not so much. Just because I felt a lot of like unsatisfaction
Mhm.
regarding like the work environment, and so like being able to, for me, like whenever I noticed that too, it was just more so like, well, then what can I be doing to help make this work environment better? And that's where coming from like coming from self-care and like filling your own cup first, doing things like, for me it's like my morning routine. I'm constantly filling up myself, that like I'd have to listen to music, I'd have to eat something really yummy, and just give myself things to look forward to before coming into work, so that way it sets it up for the rest of the day. um, and yeah, I mean, like there are things that happen on the unit where uh, there's like things don't always happen the way that you want them to, but that's something that you can't necessarily control, and realize that as long as you're doing your best, then I mean that's all that matters, and as long as the patient is safe too. And not let and this is where emotional intelligence comes in, because then you're able to control your own reactions and not um, react in spite of other people's reactions.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I think that's great. Those are great insights, especially during this challenging time with the pandemic. There's a lot that we can't control, and I think that it's really difficult because there is a sense that we can't, when you don't have control over those different situations, it is really hard. And so I think that's why it's been challenging for a lot of nurses in particular. Um, so those are some great insights. And we have another comment here from Farah. If Michael, you want to read that?
Yeah, sure. So Farah says, yes, ma'am, there is nothing wrong with med surg. I started in the emergency department as a new graduate, and my clinical instructor had told me I would never be an emergency nurse, which I, of course, ignored. So I encourage new nurses to follow their passion and heart. Happy nurses equal better outcomes for patients.
Mhm.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I agree. There is nothing wrong with med surg. There's a lot of specialties in nursing too. So I think if you have specific specialties you want to pursue, you could absolutely do that. And that's one of the great things about nursing. There's a specialty that there's something for everybody. So you definitely don't have to go about it a certain way or a certain path. Um, and I'm really interested too for travel nursing. Nadine, is there any any thoughts that you want to share about, when might it be a good idea to pursue travel nursing? Or, I always have loved hearing about travel nursing in general, and I think a lot of people have been kind of considering that. So, any thoughts about when it might be a good, a good opportunity for you as a nurse?
So definitely you don't want to start travel nursing until you feel like you can take care of the sickest patient on the unit.
Mm.
Um, so that's the big takeaway that I've learned. But coming from my story, uh, I didn't know I started working in med surg. I worked in a cardiac surgery unit, for about a year, and I also did have a supervisor tell me like just stick it out for a year and maybe you'll discover your passion that you like it. And no, I did not. And then and like coming from that, then I was like, okay, what can I pivot to next? Because I didn't know what other specialties there were that I really like clicked with. And then I discovered the PACU, and where I got to see so many different specialties from like neurology. We got trauma cases, we got vascular cases, all the sorts, and just being able to learn from that. And from being able to be develop the skill set, the critical thinking, in the communication skills, in being able to take care of the sickest patient. From there, that's when I realized that okay, maybe we can move in a direction of in stepping into travel nursing, um, and yeah, and then just and from there being able to contact recruiters, reaching out, trying, well, first deciding where would you want to go, what would you want to do, can you, what what other areas in your current position can you, like, I guess, maximize to set you apart from other travel nurses. Like for me, during my time at the teaching hospital, I was maximizing all the opportunity I can before I can travel nurse. So I was getting like certifications. I was taking on nursing students and mentoring them. I was precepting. I was trying um, to get my CN3 and doing all of those so that way I can enhance my skill set and be able to be confident in the sleep. So it's a big leap. So.
It is. Those are really great insights, actually. Thank you for sharing that. I
Mhm.
think that's great advice for someone who might be considering it. And I mean, we've seen a big shift too in a lot of nurses pursuing travel nursing. So I think it's a great that you added that information. And oh, and Farah has another comment. Michael, do you want to share?
Yeah, she says, hang on, sorry, my browser is cutting off the text. Okay, she says, you need at least 2 to 5 years before you should travel. I was a travel nurse in the emergency department, and you only get about 2 days of orientation on average, and you need to function to your highest ability. Critical thinking and flexibility is extremely important. Being able to adapt in new environments is key.
That's
Yes, that
great.
I want to echo that. Yeah. Be confident in your skills and abilities and don't be afraid to ask questions. Like this is where like the Thriving 20 somethings comes from too, because I'm like, I want to normalize and encourage help seeking behavior. Don't get stuck in your head. Ask for help. Ask for people who are already in the place that you want to be, and learn from them.
I love that, and that's a great segue, Nadine, because in our spotlights we also love to ask our guests about their well-being journeys, and I'd love if you could share a little bit more about your journey with well-being. When it comes to your personal well-being, is there anything that you want to share about your own journey pursuing that? Because it sounds like, I mean, throughout our discussion, you have a lot of great practices that you do to help promote your own wellness and self-care. And so I would love to hear your thoughts about that, and if you could share with the audience.
Yeah. Well, I definitely shared like a lot of being able to pour into yourself first to make sure your cup is filled. Actually, I want to touch base on that point because I learned this from my coach. Uh, that when you want to fill your cup so that way you're in overflow. So that way you're living in overflow, where your overflow is what you're giving to the world. Because if you pour from just your full cup, then you end up with less. And we don't want that. And so I'm constantly always trying to overflow my cup. And that's again starting with like little habits. For me, I big goal of mine is being able to move my body so like every day, to where it's a daily habit, like brushing my teeth. That like I'm constantly like I'm trying to work my way into like being able to go on a run, do some weights, just even home workouts. Um, and then other practices is like setting up my morning routine, doing things that fill me up. Um, Recently, I'm healing my inner child. And so a lot of that looks like being able to listen to Disney music, watching That's So Raven, or actually, because she has like a sequel called Raven's Home, and been watching a lot of that. Um, and just being able to make decisions out of abundance and not from scarcity or fear. That's a lot of what my well-being is like.
I love that. That's great. And Kathy, did you want to add to that?
Well, actually, I want to ask this question. So, if you could give, say, a hospital some advice of how nurses can fill their own cup, what would be some of the things that you would recommend?
If I could give the hospital
Yeah,
some
because I
advice.
mean, yeah, because we work in an institution, we work at the bedside, and we spend a significant amount of our day in with other people, right, in the hospital, and often those environments don't provide space for me to go and
Mm,
fill my cup, right? So like any advice that you could give like institutions of how we can provide that space for nurses?
I don't know if this is really advice, but I think this would be a great idea, where there where there are opportunities and spaces for um what's the word I'm looking for? Like to enhance like work culture,
Yeah.
and being like either getting paid for it or like paid time off for it. So that way, that also enhances like the work culture on the unit. It provides space to connect with those you're working with. But that's definitely like an idea that I'd want to pitch out there, because that'd be cool. Like I overheard like being able to do like 5Ks with your coworkers.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that.
I love that. Yes, thank you. I do love the idea of having really that time off just for your self-care, having that time with your colleagues to do wellness and well-being activities. I think that's so important. And that really bonds people, especially if it's physical activities or even meditation or other mental health activities. I think that's great. And we actually have some comments from the audience too. Michael, if you want to share some.
Yeah, this is from Farah. She says, self-care is obviously different for every nurse. Self-care at work is also important, such as even taking your break, eating, drinking water, going outside for walks, listening to music, etc. Sitting outside for lunch if the weather is nice. And then she has another comment: having self-care, having self-care rooms or meditation rooms, scheduled breaks such as a relief nurse, massage chairs around the hospital, free food is always nice. Always, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That kind of brings me to Maslow's hierarchy of needs too.
Mm.
Something I've been thinking about a lot,
Mm.
which actually Adrian, who's been active in our conversation, had told me about, is asking yourself what is it that you need in this moment. And a lot of the times, if you're feeling challenged or if you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed, we might go back to our basic needs. Did we eat today? Did we even sleep well? Did we have a fight with somebody that we're close to? What is it that might be going on that might that might lead us to what we actually need in that moment. And all those things that Farah listed could definitely be things that help to alleviate that and to help us with our basic needs. But these are all great suggestions, and really, really thankful for everyone sharing. And we're actually we're almost a minute left actually. But Nadine, is there
Wow.
anything? I know it's been a great conversation. And is there
Yeah.
any final words or anything else you would like to share with the audience or with anyone, any nurses or any healthcare professionals who are listening?
Yeah. Well, it's just to echo off Adrian's comment. Is definitely just to take some moments to just breathe. Like, give yourself a pause throughout your day and just give yourself credit for where you are, and give yourself grace. Yeah.
I love that. And any final words from our co-founders as well?
I just want to say that thank you so much for getting over your fear and putting yourself out there to help others, and to normalize self-care, that it's not a selfish act. It really is a needed so that you can take care of others. So thank you so much for being a voice for a lot of people.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm honored to be here.
Yes, thank you, Nadine. And go ahead, Michael. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say I really, really appreciated the conversation as well. Really enjoyed it. I wanted to say I really like the point you made earlier about making the small wins, breaking things down into small wins to get over your fears or to make a big goal. I think that's something that's so important to remember. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. You feel good once you accomplish that little win,
Absolutely.
Right? And you just got to keep that up.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Nadine. I definitely want to echo the comments from my co-founders and from the audience members. Truly appreciate you being here and also sharing your journeys and perspectives as an AAPI member. That means a lot, and I think that resonates with so many people. But thank you, and for for everyone listening, our guest today is Nadine Palacio, nurse coach and founder of Thriving Twentysomethings. And you could also, everyone on the call can also follow us on social media. We have our website, fifthwindow.com, and actually our app is now launched. Yay! We launched our app on February 8th. So for anyone who's interested in learning more about well-being and self-care, you could visit our website at www.fifthwindow.com and download our app. And we will have more events on a monthly basis. So definitely stay tuned and follow us on our journey there. And thank you all again for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.